there are so many of these? It's so confusing.
Hi everyone! Welcome to episode 58 of the So Not Scary series. In today's episode, I want to talk to you a little bit more about how to open up your mini sewing machine and what tools you need to open up your mini sewing machine in case you need to fix any problems inside it. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I had posted a video on my channel showing you in great detail how to open up the mini sewing machine and reset the timing on the mini sewing machine's bobbin so that your sewing machine works properly. And I thought I've done a good enough job of explaining to you how the whole thing works, but actually I didn't go into enough detail on what tools you need to open up your mini sewing machine. I just grabbed a screwdriver and I opened it up. But following that video, even up until very recently, I've received a few messages, including some very panicky messages saying or asking what screwdrivers I use to open up the mini sewing machine. So all those of you who have been confused about that, I do apologize. I should have done that in my original video. So here I am trying to make amends because I feel it's my duty to be as clear as possible when I am trying to teach you about how to use your mini sewing machine as effectively as possible, right? So let's get into it. Okay, so right now in front of you, you will see a whole range of screwdrivers. And all these screwdrivers have got one thing in common, and that thing is that they all have a four-pronged head, okay? Now what's a four-pronged head? A four-pronged head is something that looks like this, and if I bring it really close to the camera and try to focus it, you will see that the very tip of the screwdriver kind of makes like a cross. It's not like a flat-headed screwdriver. Instead, there's like the prongs are making a cross on the very tip, okay? And these are actually fairly common screwdrivers, as you probably all know. So that actually is not the main problem when it comes to opening up the mini sewing machine. The main problem is actually related to the girth of the screwdriver. So here I've got my generic mini sewing machine that you guys have seen in multiple videos now, okay? If I flip this over on the back of it, as I pointed out in my earlier video right here, you will notice that on the back it's got 6 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when you want to open up this mini sewing machine, ideally you need to be aiming to remove all 6 of those screws in order to open it up, okay? Now if I pick up any of these screwdrivers, because they kind of look similar, and I try to unscrew them, look what happens. So I'm just picking this up, again a four-pronged head, and if I do that, look, it's not going in. It's not going in through those holes, okay? The holes are too narrow. What that means is that the shaft of the screwdriver is too thick. So this is of no use to me, so let's put this away. Let's pick up this gray one. Okay, and now let's try again, because I've got a whole selection of screwdrivers sitting in my toolbox, and again you will notice that this isn't any good either, even though it looks like a perfectly good four-pronged screwdriver. Okay, so this goes away as well. Let's try this little stubby one, okay? This is one of my favorite screwdrivers actually. When all of the screwdrivers fail on various occasions, this is the one that always seems to come to the rescue. So let's try this one. And again, you will notice that the holes on the back of the mini sewing machine are just way too narrow for this little stubby screwdriver's shaft to go through as well. So now let's try this final red screwdriver, which kind of looked very similar to this little guy. Okay, so let's try this. And now do you see? This can go in. Okay, so this is the one that fits in. So this is the only screwdriver that's going to actually unscrew the screws in the back of the mini sewing machine. So what's so special about this screwdriver anyway? Okay, what's there that the other 3 screwdrivers couldn't handle? If I bring it really close to the camera, and it's a really old screwdriver, but if I turn it this way, very faintly you will see there are some numbers written on the side of it, and these numbers say number 1 multiplied by 100 millimeters, okay? So it's a number 1 by 100 millimeters screwdriver. At least that's what's written on the side of the screwdriver. And if I show you the shaft of the screwdriver, it says chrome vanadium. That's just the metal composition, I suppose, of the screwdriver, okay? So that shouldn't be a problem. So if I hold these two screwdrivers together, there doesn't seem to be much of a difference anyway. And if you were just out there to buy a single screwdriver, you could very easily get confused and you could bring the wrong screwdriver home. So if I now read out what's written on this screwdriver, the fat one, it says number 2 multiplied by 100 millimeters, okay? While the narrow one was number 1. So make sure when you are going out to buy a screwdriver, if you don't have the narrow one at home, you need to be looking for the number 1 screwdriver and not number 2, okay? So number 1 is your friend. Now, another thing you need to watch out for, and I think by now it's pretty much standard practice on all tools, is that you want to try ideally for the screwdriver to have a magnetic head. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here in my hand, I've got a big fat old safety pin. And if I touch it with a screwdriver, look what happens. The screwdriver can pick it up because it's got a magnetic head, okay? So because of the magnet in the screwdriver's head, it can pick it up, okay? And ideally, you want to make sure that not only is your screwdriver a narrow number 1, but it also has a magnetic head. And here's why. If you look at the screw heads which are inside these holes on the back of the mini sewing machine, you'll realize that these holes are actually really deep. Okay, they're almost as deep as that. Okay, they're really deep holes, okay? And the screw is actually very deep within those little tunnels, okay, on the back. So when you're unscrewing them, you want to be able to pick those screws out one by one, instead of you having to flip the machine over and giving it a shake, because that's not good for any kind of machinery, okay? So 2 things you now need to make sure is you need to have a narrow screwdriver, and ideally it should have a magnetic head. And here's how you're gonna do it. So I'm just gonna show you one example. If I put my screwdriver in and turn it, I can now feel that the screw is completely loosened up. Now if I want to take the screw out, this is what's gonna happen. Do you see? The screwdriver catches the screw, okay? And it's not just floating around in there, okay? So I'm just gonna put this one back. Easy as pie, that's done. Okay, so I hope now you know that ideally you should be looking for a screwdriver with a magnetic head. One last thing that you need to be careful of when you are unscrewing your mini sewing machine is that you will actually not be able to unscrew all 6 screws. And here's why. In my original video, once again, which is right here, you'll be able to see it there. You will realize that when you actually start unscrewing the back screws, you'll be able to easily do screws number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But this last screw at the bottom right, you will really struggle to unscrew this one, and that's because it's not really catching anything onto the other side of the machine, okay? So yeah, by all means spin it around with your screwdriver, but if it doesn't catch and if it doesn't come out, don't panic, leave it be. Just focus on getting these 5 screws out and you should be fine, okay? Now there is one last thing I want to point out to you before wrapping this up. And that is when you flip the machine over after unscrewing it. Okay, so here I am flipping it over. Take a look at your thread take-up lever, which is this little guy. And if I turn my hand wheel towards myself, you guys know this very well by now, the lever goes up and down. Now when you want to take the top off your mini sewing machine, make sure that this lever is actually low, sitting somewhere in the middle here. Do you know why? Because see this slit through which the lever is moving up and down? It's like a hollow on the front of the machine, okay? So you will be taking the entire front off the lever, okay? And when you want to put it back, you will be sliding it back on top of the lever so that the lever slides in through this hole, okay? So make sure that your lever is in the neutral or middle position so that when you lift the front off, you're not catching anything and you're not damaging the lever, okay? And once again, be super careful when you put it back. Again, if you watch this video that I keep pointing out over and over again, because that's where I actually unscrewed and took the top off in great detail, you will be able to find how I took the front off and how I replaced the front as well, okay? So yeah, do go ahead, watch that video, but I hope I've cleared up the few little things you need to keep in mind when you are planning to open up your mini sewing machine. So a quick recap of what you need to be careful of when you want to open up your mini sewing machine. 1, you need to have a 4-pronged screwdriver. which has a 4-pronged head, okay? It needs to be a size number 1, okay? And ideally, it needs to have a magnetic head. Those are the 3 things you need to be careful of when getting your tools, okay? Now, the 4th thing you need to be careful of is that the last screw, which is at the bottom right of your mini sewing machine, is probably just going to keep on turning forever and not come out, but that's okay. You will still be able to open up your mini sewing machine, so don't worry about this screw. And finally, when you are lifting the top off after unscrewing your machine, be careful not to damage this lever. Keep this lever, this thread take-up lever, in the middle position so that you can easily take the top off and put the top back on again. And that's it. I hope you found today's video helpful, guys, and that it cleared up any confusions you might have been facing when planning to open up your mini sewing machine. If you think this did help you, please do share this video and help another sewist out. Thank you so much, and I shall see you guys soon. Bye!